afternoon. I think it is afternoon. So I'm Liz Larson. I am the director of the Amherst Historical Society, and welcome to our final History Bites for 2024. Today we are welcoming Mr. Josh Shanley. My phone is falling asleep. There we go. Who is here to talk about his latest book project entitled Cold War Massachusetts. It spotlights the Massachusetts' significant role during the Cold War, focusing on its strategic defense installations, technological innovations, and contributions to civil defense initiatives. There might be a couple spoiler alerts coming here, so don't be surprised when we learn all of these hidden secrets about our wonderful little Commonwealth. In Amherst, he's explored several historic sites, including the bunker at Military Road, built in 1957, and the lesser-known backyard bunker on Pine Street. Beyond Amherst, he has documented hidden military and emergency infrastructure across Massachusetts, such as tunnels under Westover, and the State Emergency Operations Center in Framingham, which recently celebrated its 60th anniversary. Wow. So, I don't think we need to sign any special non-disclosure agreements for this talk, but I'm very much looking forward to it, so please welcome Mr. Shanley.
Great. Thank you. Thanks everyone for coming. Very impressed and surprised and happy to have you all here. So yeah, I was Amherst Fire Department from '97 till 2008, firefighter paramedic, and then I transferred over to Northampton, and from about 2009 till just November of 2021, I retired. I had 8 years in New York as a paramedic before that. So I've been involved in emergency services for 30 plus years. I retired, and now I'm fortunate enough to have been hired by NEMA, the State Emergency Management Agency, and also I work for the State Department of Fire Services. So.
So you should be out there right now fighting a fire, right?
I am no longer operational. I let my medic go after 30-something years, and I drive by and go, oh, that looks bad, someone should call someone. Yeah, so I definitely stay connected with what's going on on a day-to-day basis. I'm good friends, I'm lucky enough to say, with the State Fire Marshal, who was the chief in Northampton, and one of my captains for several years. A good man, and I know those guys, men and women, are very busy out there doing it right now. There's a big brush fire. They may have wrapped up in Northampton, and then yesterday in Chicopee, the brush fire shut down the pike. So
yeah,
the business is good, unfortunately.
Is it started by people from?
Lots of different things. The next book is on the history of the State Fire Marshal's office. So yesterday when my phone was blowing up about brush fires shutting down Chicopee, I was doing research on 1922 when there was it made yesterday look like a walk in the park. So stay tuned for that. We'll do that one another time. Today, what I want to do is talk to you about, essentially the book isn't even out yet. They told me, we booked this in March, I think. They told me the book, my submission has been in. They're working on the process. It's going to be published by Arcadia, the first 2 books that I wrote. So it's in the pipe. They're telling me it's going to be out by Christmas. So hopefully it'll be out soon. In the meantime, since we had already booked this, I didn't want to cancel. But basically the theme and what I discovered while I was researching this book is that this infrastructure is hidden in plain sight. It's right in front of us. We'll start here at the Notch, but I've got a Google Earth map that I can tour around, and I'll keep an eye on the time. But I have about 100 different points all over Massachusetts that looks at infrastructure that was built in the late 40s, a lot in the 50s and 60s, and then sort of trailed off a little bit. I did try to tailor this to Amherst, so I have some slides. We'll look at the Notch, and then the bottom line up front with the backyard bunker on Pine Street is I couldn't verify it. I was told by John Ingram, who was my captain. You guys know John? He was
in Belchertown.
He was my captain when I was working in Amherst, and then now he's the chief in Belchertown. He's a good man. right across the street from his house. He tells me there's a backyard bunker. I've been in many of these places. I am still, as I'll go knock on the doors of some of these bunkers, you'll see some of the places I'm very confident walking in and around. I just don't feel comfortable walking up to a private residence and asking if I can see the bunker in their place. I know how I would feel if someone came knocking on my door to see my bunker.
Where about on Pine Street is it?
It's supposed to be right at the intersection. So if you go down Pine and take, it's right at the intersection, the T intersection. So it's been a while since I've been up there.
East Pleasant.
If you go up East Pleasant and then Pine Street T's, right?
Yeah, right.
If you take the left, John Ingram's house is right there. Like if you don't stop at the intersection, you're going into his living room. So right on the left-hand side, it's in that area. I have a feeling there's not much to see there. And what I did do was I have a couple of examples, if you want to see them. During the 60s, there was this ongoing debate publicly in the newspapers. Should we encourage people to build shelters, or should we evacuate?
You we used to go fallout shelter?
Fallout
Yeah, we had
shelters.
one in our house.
You do?
It was in Connecticut.
Okay.
And years after we left, we were sort of having a family reunion. We were back, this was in Stamford, Connecticut.
Stanford.
And we just went up to the house, and we weren't shy. And actually the people there were thrilled to learn about what we did. Of course, we just sort of toilet paper and stuff like that.
Yeah,
But it was-
and I think that that's what you would see if you went and knocked on the door on Pine Street. They probably chose a corner, and if they were ambitious, they put cinder blocks and maybe put some sandbags, that kind of thing. So I'm going to show you some real bunkers that are right around here, but it's different from a backyard bunker or a basement bunker that was common in the 60s. So let's start. So what I have is a tour. Has anyone been up to Military Road? We all know we're oriented here. We all know what we're talking about. So if you go up over the notch is over on this side. You go up before you get to the top. You turn right. Here's that's Department of Conservation Ranger Station there, and then the bunker. If you go down there, you'll see a gate in front of you. So this was built in the late 50s under Curtis LeMay. He spent quite a bit of time at Westover. This was before the whole Strategic Air Command network was being built. I haven't been able to find any supporting documentation, but my thought, having done quite a bit of reading, was that he built this place out to support Westover, which we're going to go to Westover next. But this was kind of his dress rehearsal. He said, all right, we're going to build out Westover, and there are B-52s, 4 B-52s, 24/7, ready to go, loaded. And that this was the Strategic Air Command, not only for Westover, but for New England and New York, the whole eastern seaboard. This was one of the first. He then goes on to build a larger network, obviously, but this was one of the first, if not the first. He moved on shortly after from his time. He lived in Holyoke. I have the street address somewhere, but he spent a lot of time at Westover early on. Has anyone been in the bunker? What did it look like when you saw it, when you were there?
Just a big empty concrete bunker.
Yeah, not much to see there now. So what I have is some old photos. Internet's going to be my enemy or my friend today. So these are some old photos from when it was actually in service as Strategic Air Command. I'll call your attention to that gallery there, but you can see what that looked like at the time. These are some photos of when it was operational. And again, we're going to do this tour, so I'm going to call some details. You'll see these recurring themes. The structure here, over there on the left-hand side. This is all, when you start to visit these sites, you'll start to see these. And almost, they're so hidden, but when you're walking and you're in the woods and you see something like that, you're like, there's something here, let's pause. All of these structures, when you're looking at them from the air, they're designed to be camouflaged. They're designed to be invisible. So yeah, they're hardened. They're set inside these mountains, but they're also designed to be camouflaged. And you'll see lots of examples. But you'll see the infrastructure, and that's what I learned to look for. That's a front-on view. Again, more infrastructure there. not very big in there, right? It wasn't, I mean, it wasn't sprawling. I mean, it
Yeah,
wasn't particularly large. I have some,
It didn't feel like football, like lots of football fields.
yeah,
No.
we're gonna go up to a bunker in Chesterfield next, or I don't know where we're going next, I have it all queued up here. But that place was huge and sprawling. This was some photos, a lot of communication. So there were radar installations and communication. So this was part of a network, and you'll see some of the other infrastructure. But they're designed to communicate through the air, and you'll see the towers, but also through copper lines that are about 12 inches thick that they laid from one station to another.
What were they mostly concerned with? I mean, I know this, it was,
Bombed by the
it was
Russians.
spying or?
We're not spying. It's,
No, what were they mostly looking for?
Bombers.
yeah, the radar installation was
I mean,
anticipating
this is
getting.
after World War II, correct?
Yeah, so I'll step back. So essentially, that's okay. The Cold War period, we're going to be looking at, you know, the months and years after the end of World War II, right up until 1991. That's sort of the span of time. And we're focused on Massachusetts in particular. But what I found, I live in Connecticut also, in East Windsor, and a lot of the stuff that I'm showing you here, there's similar infrastructure down there. So around Providence, around Hartford, there are similar infrastructure, and they're all connected. That's the point here. This is just a snapshot of what's going on around us. But if you go to Connecticut, if you go up to Maine, there's a lot of similar type of infrastructure. They're all connected. But what were they looking for? They were waiting for bombers to come over from Russia, first across the Atlantic Ocean, and then into the 60s, they're coming up over the top, and that kind of messed up all the plans because we were defending the eastern seaboard, and then we had to learn to defend the north because they were going to come over the Arctic. So again, so what these are radiation detectors and blast detectors. The expectation is that when the bomb hits, there's not going to be time to notify everyone. So when that gets a pop of light, energy, heat, it sends off a signal to the rest of the network through the Strategic Air Command saying, we've been hit. So they're anticipating there's no warning, no chance to notify people. So you'll see that structure. It's pretty common, you'll see, and they're all connected. That's that gallery I was talking about, so the screens are over here, and that's an whole gallery. I'm sure General LeMay spent quite a bit of time in there. It was probably his happy place. And that's it under construction. So this was under construction in '62. So a lot of this infrastructure was built around the same time. You'll see. So over to Westover. And you're familiar, there's the notch, and there's the hills, and that's why they built it on the north side to protect it, because they expected Westover to be blasted. And the idea of putting it into the mountainside on the north side gave it another level of protection. That's the reason for the placement. At Westover, and I've had the opportunity to be there several times now, there's one building in particular that I'll call your attention to. Each building has a number. 7450 used to be the Air Wing headquarters. Yeah. So the Air Wing, now it is, I'm sorry, the resolution is usually better. I got crappy internet. But this building now is the Metropolitan Airport, so it's public now at this point. But what you'll see, I'll call your attention to, these structures here, they're jutting out. Better. This was where the crews were in this structure 24/7, and the B-52s were out on this. They called it the Christmas tree. So this was called the mole hole, and this was the Christmas tree. The crews would be in here, crews of 8 guys, I think, and they went everywhere together all of the time. It was 24/7, 365, and they would wait for this klaxon to silent.
And they were military?
Yeah, this was Air Force. This was Air Force at the time, and this was relatively new. I did not serve, but the Air Force at this time had a different kind of culture than the Army. And in my studies, what we did was I broke up the military side and then the civilian side. So we'll talk about some of the civil defense stuff in just a few minutes, but this is all military infrastructure now at Westover. So again, picture B-52s loaded with atomic weapons, hydrogen weapons, idling, waiting to go. 4 of them all the time. The klaxon would go off, the guys would roll down and pour out onto the field, and there's an old shot. So they would come out of the mole hole there, that's what they called it, and out onto the field and get in and go. And that's why they designed it at Westover. Stony Brook. Does anyone know about Stony Brook? So Stony Brook is an Air Force station, and it's contiguous to Westover. So Westover, I'm going to get better internet access to my contract next time. Westover is over here. Stony Brook is a separate air base, but contiguous to it. So there's a separate command structure, separate people. Stony Brook was the location in the country where atomic weapons were repaired. So if an atomic weapon was malfunctioning or needed some sort of repair, it would be flown in to Westover, loaded onto a separate vehicle or into one of these tunnels, and brought over to Stony Brook. So it was always in a secure location. They would load them into one of these 39 bunkers, and that's where they would actually do the repairs. So that's one of the bunkers, one of the 39 that was there. And again, you can see these are designed to be camouflaged from above. So if a satellite or an airplane was doing a flyover, they were hard to see. I'll also call your attention to the infrastructure on the roof, right on the top of that structure. So it all starts to look very similar. You've been in these, right?
Is there a lake around there?
So this is that's a pond. That's the Hampden County jail right now. I would definitely advise you not to put a drone up outside the Hampden County jail anytime. But that's what I mean. I'm happy to put a drone up, but I don't want to go knock on someone's door and ask them about their phone ring. But yeah, these are friends of ours, so these are perks of the job. But you can get a sense of the scale of this. That's why I wanted to shoot this. Now keep an eye on this structure, because this is what's known as a bunker, but like an igloo type bunker, as opposed to the Notch bunker, the Framingham bunker I'll show you, and there's another one in Westover, or Westboro, Maynard. So yes, it's a bunker, but this is more like a storage bunker. This was designed to sort of contain, store. It was more like almost like a warehouse. But you can see this is not to be messed with. This is a hardened facility. One of 39, the Hampden County Sheriff has turned one into their emergency operations center. They turned another one into, they have a storage closet, and then the stable. So they've actually converted one. I don't think I have it in this deck, but they've converted one into horse stables for their police horses, which is, you've been in that one, right?
Yeah, and
It's beautiful.
I believe there's one for canine training too.
That's out on the same yard, so you can sort of see it.
Oh, okay.
I think.
North is up,
I'm sorry?
north up.
Yes, sir. Yeah, here's our north arrow if you're looking to get oriented. But yeah, these are the bunkers here. This is the equine center, and I think they do canine there now too.
Oh.
Last time I was there. Okay, so we're going up to Chesterfield now. If anyone wants to stop and ask any questions, please let me know. We can fly back. This was a communications bunker built in around the late 60s, early 60s, excuse me, blueprints of this place. This place, I went up and knocked on the door, the lady let me in, I was there for almost 2 hours. This was a communications bunker. This is Mount, oops. That's where we are now.
Chesterfield, like up with Chesterfield Gorges?
Yeah, exactly. So this is what it looks like today. But I want you to picture, it's 11 Buffin Hill Road. This is it under construction. This was one of a network of AT&T bunkers. So AT&T was a partner in this. So this is a private military collaboration. This is it under construction. This is a cross section to give you some scale. And this really doesn't do it justice, frankly. It's much bigger than this. This location, this facility, was the location that was designated as the secured location when Julie Nixon went to Smith College. So when something happened, she was going to be whisked out of Smith College and brought up to Chesterfield. Who knows, that probably would have taken an hour at that point. But yeah, they
She
actually,
have to put her head underneath the desk.
they actually showed me the room that would have been her quarters. It wasn't very fancy.
Now, were these all government properties at that time?
Yeah, so they were taken over by eminent domain. Yeah, exactly. And that was
Later declassified.
repurposed in a lot of cases. So in this case, this is now, they're running a business out of this place. But if you went down Buffin Hill Road in Chesterfield in 1970 something, based on what those cars are looking like, and you looked, that's what you saw. There was nothing to see. That cross section that I'm showing you here, this is actually infrastructure that's inside. I shot that photo. There's a lot of HVAC and generators in there. So that's kind of, it looks like it's like they stopped in time. Look at everything's built on springs in anticipation of a shock wave. So all the plumbing is built on flexible pipes. So toilets have like flexible type pipes, so when they move after the bomb hits, they won't be disrupted.
Where were they going to get flowing water?
They have it. It's an amazing facility. This, I was showing, I spoke to the ladies ahead of this, and we were doing a quick tour. This is a painting inside, to give you some scale, that's like at this height, that's how big this painting is. I don't think it's the notch, maybe it could be the Connecticut River, but to the best of my guess, it was sort of because people were going to be under there for years at a time or months at a time. So that was to give them some sense of, remember what it looked like outside.
When you hike through the woods around here, from Leverett, and it's kind of an east-west thing, you come across these AT&T posts, and they're all numbered, and they head toward, I once looked on a map, and so that must have been part of this apparatus.
Yeah, so yes.
And
Long
there's still
story
even a
short.
little cabin
Yes,
right there by the trails, the
Yep.
Captain Hole trails.
yes. So I think I have an example of one, there's dozens, if not more than 100 of them, and I started to map them.
Where did that particular one go from where to where?
I can show you. I have the connections. I don't know how much time we're going to spend on it, but yeah, there's towers. One's in New Salem. There's another one in Peru. They had them because when they first built these radar installations, everything was hardwired, copper wire. So they had to lay copper wire. Then they started to figure out how to transmit radio signals. The problem was that due to the curve of the Earth, they had to have everything, every 7 miles there had to be a radar tower. So there's a network of them, and that's what you're seeing. They're all AT&T.
Because these must be underground cables.
Yep.
Connected.
Yeah, they're about 8 to 12 inches thick of copper. But yeah, what you're seeing there, those little huts, those were put in by AT&T at the time for this purpose. They've either been abandoned or repurposed in many cases, or repurposed, as is the case of as is the case for Chesterfield. This is it's very dark in there. This is a vault. So there, a space where someone was coming in from the outside. If they had been contaminated, they would step into this space, and there's a shower in there, and then supposedly they would be led into the inside, right? So that's a vault space, and I've got a bunch of different photos of it, but that gives you some sense of how thick the doors are. It's got to be 8, 10 inches thick, and you'll see this infrastructure, this style of infrastructure repeat over and over again. So that's just one example. I think in the background that's a stairway going up to Julie Nixon's secure location. I've got a bunch of different photos of that place. Here's the New Salem. So this is what it looks like today. Not much to see. I haven't been up there. These photos, sad story. A lot of the photos I'm sharing with you were taken by a gentleman that he's just passed away on Monday. I'm going to his wake when I leave here. Real history buff, but he knows. He's been to a lot of it. He's a weird guy, frankly, but he went into a lot of these spaces. Like if he saw an AT&T shed, he was down in it shooting photos. So there is a concrete slab up in New Salem off 202 now. Not much to see nowadays, but this is what it looked like late 60s. You can see it, that satellite globe type structure. So that indicates to me that it was a little later, late 60s, early 70s. He's got a closer one. Any of you who have gone west on Route 9,
Oh, yeah, you see it.
when you get to Cummington, there's one that looks very similar to this. A good example of one that's been repurposed. This is now gone, so there's a concrete slab, but the one in Cummington is still operational. It's, from what I can understand, it's operated by Space Force, and that they track the shuttle. That's one of the locations, so it's very real. I haven't had the nerve to go knock on that guy's door yet. But it's that similar thing. You can kind of see it off in the distance.
You track the what?
The space shuttle.
Oh.
So when the space shuttle's up, it's one of those. It's a close-up of it. And that's what it looks like now. Mark Foster, took that photo. He actually went up there. He's the one who passed away. I don't know if it still looks like that, but that's what it looked like when he went to visit. Peru, Mass, out in the Berkshires. This is a similar situation, another radar installation. This is not operational now, but that's what it looks like currently. I gotta go take a drive up there, but it's basically been abandoned. This is what it looks like. Again, this is one of these networks that were built from Boston down to New York, down to DC. They needed, in the late 50s, late 40s, early 50s, they needed a way to connect wirelessly. So they had a network of towers every 7 miles. And that was the purpose of this one. This is actually much larger. This has the same sort of feel to it as the Chesterfield bunker. Kind of large and sprawling from what I can tell. I haven't been in this one. But all this stuff, once they build it, it's not coming out because they build it and then they encase it in concrete. It's hardened concrete. So it's not going anywhere. Where are we going next? Hancock, Mass. So, this is a weird one. This is a private bunker. So this guy would have been what we call today a prepper. And this is one of the only, there are a couple prepper type bunkers that I've come across, but this one was built by the Town of Hancock Emergency Management Director. So that was his job, was to be the emergency management director for the small town of Hancock. And he built this bunker that's now it's called the Privacy Campground. The name of it's the Privacy Campground. And I believe it was recently sold. NPR did a story on this in 2020, and they went out to visit. It was just after COVID, or just ahead of COVID rather. They actually did a site. I believe he's passed away now.
What's his name?
Remold? What is his name? Andre Rambaud, Rambaud. So this was in the Globe, I think, maybe the Berkshire Eagle. This is a photo, it's a creepy photo, right? But this is a concrete bunker, and that's his daughter, and he built this sort of conveyor belt to travel from one bunker space to the other. And he's demonstrating it here for the newspaper.
So she's gonna go through that opening?
Yeah, so like a conveyor belt through, not too creepy. Yeah, it probably had that same feel, except you're in Hancock in a bunker. I think I have a modern day view. That's what it looks like from the outside. So again, it's been converted into a campground now, so that's like their recreation building. Same. Yeah, and there he is. So he built electrical infrastructure, water we were talking about. He had underground reservoirs, pump systems, and he just maintained this thing on his own. That's just kind of what it looked like. Yeah, this is from one of the NPR stories that he did on him. Yankee Row, of course, that's what it looks like now. Here's what it looked like then. This was the third atomic power plant built in the country. The first one was kind of an experimental military one in the south, but this was the second commercial one built, and it stayed in operation for 40 plus years. And again, with the research I was doing, I looked at civilian side, I looked at military side, a tremendous amount of research that went on. It comes out in the book, but we're probably not going to have time to get into it today. But out east, Hanscom Air Force Base partnered with Massachusetts Institute of Technology. They were doing real cutting edge research on all of these weapons and communication systems, and it just so happened that it was in Massachusetts. So it definitely works into the book. This was, I think, recognizing the closing of it. If you go up there now, I just met a guy. His job is private security. There's still atomic waste up there, and they guard it. So his job was to guard these casks of atomic waste. So he's going to invite me up, because I wouldn't go up there by myself. But if he invites me up, then I can go.
Where was the atomic waste from?
From the plant. So they
were all being run by nuclear energy?
Yeah,
Oh.
it was an atomic energy plant. So when they decommissioned it, then they knocked it down. They were left with this waste that they had to do something
But
with
they
it.
weren't, but all the bunkers weren't run by atomic.
No. That was a power plant example. That was a power plant. I'm sorry if I wasn't clear on that. That was a power plant example. This is the Wilbraham bunker. So this was, if you're familiar on Route 20 where the Wilbraham fire station is currently, it's past a year or two, they opened up a new one. But this was a demonstration bunker of what you could have. I think this was going to end up being like a town EOC, Emergency Operations Center bunker for the town of Wilbraham. So they built this thing. It was right next to the fire station. That's the fire station off on the left-hand side. And then they left it there sort of demonstration purposes of, kind of what could be. I don't know what they were thinking, frankly. It was just there. A lot of this stuff, if you try to process it, looking at the world through today's lens, doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But this is what was going on. So I just thought it was an interesting photo. That was a picture from, I believe that was the Republican, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So, now, I mentioned that I have the opportunity to work for MEMA, the State Emergency Management Agency, and this is the MEMA headquarters today. I get to go in there on a regular basis now. For reference, this is Route 9 in Framingham, so this is like hidden in plain sight. If I can get it. Can you make that out? If you weren't sure what was under there. So they actually have real hedges, boxwood hedges, that spell out MEMA, that you can read from above, hidden in plain sight. So this is a modern photo, obviously. That's a parking lot that they built. The whole structure is underneath there. This is the entryway I'll show you in a moment that was built. You go down a ramp to a blast door, and that's where the emergency management director for the state, she goes to her office every day, walks down the ramp, through the blast door, and yeah, that's the current headquarters.
Are those other things solar collectors?
Yeah, they just put those up there now to sort of,
Why not?
yeah, because why not? And then just for reference, that this structure here, that's the Mass State Police General Headquarters. They're in close proximity.
Which way is 95?
95.
From that picture.
We're not. Well, we're on Route 9 in Framingham.
Goes to Boston.
Yeah, so
Parallel.
it's parallel. Yeah, thank you. No, it's perpendicular. Route 9 runs east-west, and 95 runs
Oh,
north-south.
I'm 95, I'm sorry, thank you,
You're
that's
thinking of the
Pike.
turnpike.
Yeah.
Pike, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Wrong
Teamwork.
number.
We'll figure it out. So these are some old photos from when it was actually being built and opened. This was the 4th location around the state. Began in Boston, they moved it out to Newton, went to Natick, went out to Harvard, Mass for a little while until they finally built this. They chose Framingham and on Route 9 because it was just far enough away from Boston that when Boston was blown up, Framingham would still be there, they kind of figured. That's the way they chose the location. We're close, but we're not close enough. Because downtown Boston, that was going to get leveled. Newton, it's still too close. You got to keep in mind, the technology kept evolving, right? So I said, hopefully we'll have time, I'll at least show you one of the Nike bases. But there's a ring of Nike bases, missile bases around the city of Boston, like there is around Hartford and like there is around Providence. And that system, talking about repurposing, that was a network of military bases that go back to the Civil War. And they kept repurposing, thinking that we are defending from the, coming up over the Atlantic. And that was the case until around 1962, 1964, when the technology changed and all of a sudden they're coming up from above. So the Russians developed a hydrogen bomb really quickly, and in conjunction with that, it also developed the ability to deliver a hydrogen bomb. So a big bomber all of a sudden. They're not coming from the east, they're coming from the north, and that changed everything.
And when are the ICBMs? When are the internet?
We'll talk about ICBMs. ICBMs came in 68, 69, and they tried to build one of the first of 10 or 12 in Massachusetts. And what else was going on in the US in 68, 69? And everyone had enough. So there was a big pushback to and again, technology said, okay, we don't need to put an ICBM missile in Lincoln, Mass. We're going to put it out in the Midwest. And because the technology allowed it to be delivered from that far. And that's where they are now, Nebraska, Kansas. So this is the outbuilding there. That's that main entrance under construction. See the communications towers, but the ramp goes down to a blast door. This was, we just said, this was opened on November 22, 1963. They just recognized the anniversary of, what day, what was that day?
Yeah.
Assassination.
Bingo. I love an informed audience. You guys are great. Thank you so much.
Well, we're all old enough to remember.
Operative word.
So on the day that the Framingham bunker was opened, President Kennedy was invited to attend, and instead he was in Texas.
Should have come here.
Should have come here. This is a challenge coin that the director made in honor of the 60th anniversary of the bunker. You can turn that and hand that around. But anyway, this letter hangs on the wall of the bunker when you first walk in, along with a picture of the president. This is hard to see, but it gives you a sense of the scale. So here's the main entrance. down the ramp, blast door, which I'll show you a picture of, and then all of these buildings are rooms within, operations, all the infrastructure, etc. I have some photos of those to give you a sense of what it looks like. This was the State Emergency Operations Center. The same space is still used today. It's been updated a little bit, so all sorts of fancy touch screens, but they do have that ladder in the back still. Check that out.
Home Depot.
Yeah, kind of like it. Anyone know what that is?
Refrigerator.
What is it? It's the morgue.
Waiting.
Because they figured if they were going to be down there, they were anticipating that there would be at least 2 deaths and at least 2 births. That's one of the secret escape hatches that opens up onto where those solar panels are now. That opens up and sort of on the backside of that parking lot. But those are hydraulically operated. And lore is that when a MEMA employee retires, he goes out to that escape hatch. It's hard to give a sense of like how weird and creepy this whole thing is. Like when you're walking around in these spaces, there's a feeling that I get.
Those steps are designed for running.
For running up or down, yeah, depending.
That's
Yeah,
because of the wide tread.
yeah. And a lot of solid.
Oh,
Yeah. This is Route 9 Framingham. This is actually at a place, that's the Natick facility that opened up before Framingham, but that was like state-of-the-art communications truck at the time. That's what a cell phone used to look like, right?
Oh, gee.
There's the blast door. So this is a photo that was taken from the original, I have a screenshot of it, the celebration of opening it. So they made a whole pamphlet. Again, that door, I've got the specs on it somewhere. It's around 8,000 pounds. It's about a foot thick.
It looks like it.
When you first go down the ramp, there are 2 distinct 90-degree turns. If you remember back, I should have shown it to you. But anyone know why this concrete ramp going down with 2 90-degree turns?
Because then it won't, yeah, it won't go straight ahead with the rays or whatever.
The radiation.
Yeah.
Nor could you easily drive something at it.
What's that?
You couldn't drive
No, this space,
something at it.
the space is, it's a wide hall. You're not getting a vehicle down there.
Yeah.
I've been in the Northfield power plant. That is an amazing place. On a separate note, not Cold War related, but there's a city under that now, which is crazy. But this one, yeah. So you go down, you take a 90-degree turn, you take another 90-degree turn. Radiation doesn't make turns. I didn't even know that one until I started working there. That's a picture of the program, and again, the same date. That's actually a little bit earlier. Westboro, Mass, not far off the Mass Pike. Again, they located these places so they can sort of, they've got them strategically located. So when something's going on, they buzz right out, get onto the pike, and we're gone. Right? There's still a lot of these structures. They selected them based on where their location was. This is currently the Department of the Fish Cops. Environmental Police, thank you. So this is the headquarters in the state for the Environmental Police. This, where I showed you on the map, that's what it looks like. So there's a big old colonial house that's their headquarters now. If you go around the back, and there it is hidden in plain sight. Now when I knocked on the door, a mean old sergeant came knocking and walking out. What? And I explained who I was and what I was doing. He's like, okay, come on in. There's not much to see. Right around 2020 or during COVID, they took the opportunity to clean that out. It was full of like old asbestos tiles, you know, stuff like that, and it doesn't look like it used to. He said, if you've been here 5 years ago, there was a lot to see. Now they use this for their evidence storage and their heavy weapons. So any of their long guns or anything like that, they keep here. See that? All up top, and then it's hard to see. I've got some other photos. I went up on top. You can just see those blast detectors up on top. So when you go up on top, you start to see the similar infrastructure. I don't know if that radio tower was put in at that time. I think it was, or it was repurposed. It probably is repurposed. I think there's a cell tower up there now. But anyway, ventilation, blast detectors, radiation detectors. We're doing on time. Everyone good?
Yeah.
We'll continue the tour. Where are we going next? The Big E. So in 1955, this is just the Big E fairgrounds. We're all familiar with that.
Yeah.
But in 1955, they used it as this exposition site, as they would do. And they showed off around New England a variety of medical resources. Yeah, so this was from all over New England. They just hosted it at the Big E. But it was this was 1955. And again, a lot of involvement by civilian defense side. So a lot of the stuff that previously I've been focused on military, this is more civilian defense side. So you see that familiar CD logo, the patch side of it. But this was all very focused on medical, and it was all based on, when the bomb is. The Boston Globe ran a series of 10 articles over about 2 weeks, so every 5 business days, titles about when the bomb hits, here's where you're going to go, here's what's going to happen. Graphic detail about how many people are going to be killed, a lot of detail that would probably, everyone would be triggered left and right now. They couldn't deal with it. It's hard to even watch for me to look at, but it's graphic and frankly probably accurate. It was really compelling. So there was a lot of expectation and knowledge that this is what's going to happen. So you need to be prepared for it. These were all medical professionals, doctors, nurses, hospital administrators, all focused on what happened here. This was like a 5-day conference that they ran. How to set up a mobile hospital. So there were a lot of demonstrations. They used the buildings to do that sort of thing. Where are we going? So JFK had his house at Hyannisport, right, which was across the bay. Should or when an attack came, and he was at his house at Hyannisport, he was going to be relocated out to Nantucket. This is now a playing field. I mean, it's in the middle of a sort of a beachy, beautiful Nantucket view. But this place is still here. That's what it looked like. This was built by Navy Seabees in the early 60s. And he and his family would have been relocated here. This is what it looks like. Again, same idea. This one is much more condensed, consolidated. This was a shelter bunker for the president and his family. 90-degree turn, go down that corrugated pipe, take a left. That's what's in there now. So the town, I can't remember the name of the small town out in Nantucket, but they use it for storage. Yeah. There's a similar one. Apparently he had another home away from home in Florida, and they built a similar one for him down there. That's kind of what it looks like nowadays. This is the FEMA bunker for the Northeast New England region. So all the 6 New England states and the Virgin Islands for some reason. So this is what it looks like now. And this is currently in operation. So the bunker itself, this is more like a warehouse. You start to see that bunker, you see it? You're getting good at it now. But if you pulled up on the street, that's what it looks like. but very similar. I haven't been in this one yet, but this is just a phone call away if I want to go visit it. This is up and running, operational today. Similar structures you'll see. Come on, you can do it. Again, this was all built around the same time in the 60s, early 60s. Similar glass doors, vault doors. Infrastructure built on springs to absorb the shock. And I think we have the critical shot of the toilet. Built on flexible pipe. So when, imagine that, and you do the math. But that's where you happen to be when the bomb goes off. Toilet made on springs. Yeah. This was old. This was actually the computer room at Maynard. It opened in 1958. So this is in pretty close proximity to, but separate from the Framingham bunker. This one is skip. I want to show you some of the Nike sites. This one's kind of neat, just really quick. This is a bunker built around the same time by the First Bank of Boston. Again, the banking system anticipated that it was going to get short notice that we needed to get out of Dodge, and they built a bunker in Pepperell. In Pepperell, Mass. This is what it looks like today. This is still in operation. This is more like a classic bank vault door. So they built it for security, but they also built it for protection. Very similar style to what we've seen in others. There are several of these around in Massachusetts. These are just good examples. That's what it looks like from the street nowadays. Someone lives in there.
Residential house, yeah.
I would love that. Wouldn't that be comforting? Let me show you, before we run out of time, I do want to show you one of the Nike bases. All right, we'll wrap up on these. So, we talked about ballistic missiles. So, in the 60s, this, if you didn't know, would look like an old quarry, that kind of thing. That was actually, they had started digging for one of the first of 10 anti-ballistic missiles, or ballistic missile, excuse me. They were going to build this, and then they got pushed back from the community, and finally the political pressure became too much, and they stopped. Where? This one was in Andover, North Andover.
Oh. What year was it stopped?
68, 69. A lot of it was pushed back from Vietnam. People had had enough, and it was a big NIMBY thing. They were just like, that's it. And they were going to build these, again, using that same model in urban environments. You can see how close some of these are. Let me switch gears for 1 second, we'll wrap up. This is a neighborhood in Reading, Mass. And it didn't look too different in like 1954 in terms of like what the composition was. It was just a neighborhood of people living. But this was a base that was built basically in the center of that community. This is second generation. These are Nike Hercules missiles. You just tell by the structure because I geek out on this stuff. So this was kind of second generation. These were maintained by the Army, regular Army, and then around 58, they handed over to Army Guard. So that was a big change. But what I found was amazing was, first of all, how many, there's a dozen of these that go around Boston in a ring. This is just the one in Reading. And the proximity to how these were in the neighborhood. These were people living around them. Everyone seemed to know about them and respected. There was security, but actually no one bothered. It was just a very different culture. So 2 installations, one for the launch, which is what you saw there, and then another one for the radar. So to say, all right, here's the attacks coming in here, here's where we're sending this missile to. And they were all about a mile apart. This is the radar site. Previous photos were actually, obviously, the launch. But that's basically what it looked like. So they didn't launch out of the ground. They raised them up out of these magazines, and then they would move them out to these fields where the launchers were, and they would blast them off the concrete from there. So they weren't like the ballistic missiles that are currently in vogue, or that you would think of. Hidden in plain sight. That's a radar. There's one of those. When I leave here, I'm going to see one of these right now out in Beverly, Mass.
You said you were going to go to a funeral. So you know your whole schedule.
Yeah. Well, he had the. Mark Foster was a big proponent of building the Urban Social Rescue Task Force, and it's at Beverly, which is where they're having this service. And he managed to find one of these and put it outside like a museum. Using little strings like that. Yeah, there's a radar in there. I've got about 100 different points in that map, and I'd like to keep going, but I want to be respectful of your time. If there's something specific that you're asking for, I'll definitely hang around.
The Eisenhower interstate system, did that play into any of this at all?
Mass
or was-
Pike, for sure.
Yeah.
And then,
Was that the true intention? And then,
yeah, because that goes back to what we started with, sheltering versus evacuation. So how can we, if we can't shelter, then we have to be able to evacuate. So in the book, you'll see that there's this back and forth that happens over years and decades, saying, all right, after Hiroshima, they went and studied the impact of the bomb. And then once the hydrogen bomb came out and they were studying the impact of that, it became apparent that there was no shelters. So then by Eisenhower's time, Eisenhower's background was in transportation. That's what he did in his time in the war. So he was like a logistics guy. So that's why he was a good man to sort of build out that system. But when he got into office, he said, we're not sheltering, we have to evacuate, so we're building a network to get people out. It wasn't practical either because there's too many people, and then where do you go?
Yeah.
They're coming here, right? They're coming west, or they're going anywhere but Boston. It just wasn't practical, so there's no good answer. But they spent a lot of money, a lot of time, and built these infrastructures for, that was the purpose, to answer your question. Yeah, Eisenhower.
I just did a real quick thing. It was because when he was in Germany, he knew about the water bonds. He realized that the military advantages of having a good system.
Yeah, and it was actually, I'm not a big Eisenhower history guy, but it goes back before that. He spent a lot of time on logistics and how do you move military around these kind of situations. So.
It was earlier than that. When he was a young soldier, he had to go to one part of the country to the other. It took him days.
He got lost at one point,
And
right?
he said, we're not doing it. And
Yeah.
so decades later, that's when they did it.
Yeah, he got lost at
It's
one
always
point. He was
tricky.
like gone for days at a time. He showed up there. It gave him some incentive. So whatever.
Well, I think this was fascinating, disturbing, but absolutely fascinating, and I don't think I will ever be wandering around Massachusetts again and see an interesting little hillock and not wonder what's underneath it.
Hidden in plain sight.
And hidden in plain sight. And please let us know when the book comes out, and we will share it with our emailing list.